Ken, can you give a Tigers fan hope? Can you give a Padres fan hope? Do you think we're actually going to get a season here?
I do expect, Mike, that there's going to be a season. Now, the question is, what kind of season is it going to be? And I'll try to make this as simple as possible because this stuff makes people's eyes bleed. But essentially, it's down to this. The commissioner, Rob Manfred, has the right to impose a schedule of any length he desires, that the owners desire, as long as he pays the players their pro rata salaries, which is a per game salary. That's what they agreed to in March. And baseball has asked for an additional cut simply because now they know games will be played without fans. The union initially resisted the idea that they could even ask. Now the union is simply saying, we just don't want that to happen. We are already agreeing to pro rata, which is a percentage of what we would have made, and that's where we stand. Now, the other option here, the better option for
Hmm.
baseball, for the union, for fans, is for the two sides to agree and not have a unilateral imposition. And if they agree, they'll agree likely on expanded playoffs, a number of other elements that would hopefully make the game better, make the relationship perhaps even better because it can't get much worse. And
Hmm.
that is where we stand now. The owners made a proposal yesterday. The union is expected to make a counter proposal by tomorrow. And at some point, they have to get going here because time is a wasting. Essentially, they've proposed, Major League Baseball has a 76 game season. Okay, if you want to start a 76 game season and get done by September 27th, which is MLB's goal, you really almost have to get an agreement by the end of this week or early next week.
Ken, you talked about the numbers and the percentage of a cut down season. Like you said, it can make your eyes water. So I tried to do it simply, and Matt Casey, our producer, helped me put together just a simple graphic for everybody to understand. So if we take the average Major League Baseball salary, and that's $4.4 million coming into this season. You prorate it over 76 games, and you mentioned that was kind of negotiated out, and Manfred has the right to do that. That's 2.06 million for that 4.4 million. Then 75% of that, which is the baseball proposal. So the players are looking at, okay, if I make 4.4 million for a 76 game season, I would make 1.55 million. That at least helped me understand a little bit why the players are hesitant and concerned, because there's even another level of that if there's no playoffs, if the virus comes
Right.
back, then that 1.5 million that gets cut by another quarter again. So the players are really trying to protect some sort of income for them for this season.
Yes, and one way around this would be to play a longer season at perhaps some kind
Right.
of cut, right? Say, let's say, I don't know, 100 games at 75%. But the owners keep saying that they cannot play a large number of games unless the cut is significant. Now, I don't know where the numbers hit the sweet spot for the owners. I'm not even sure where they hit the sweet spot for the players. All I know is the players want
Right.
their full prorated salary. So, where this goes, I'm not sure. Basically, to this point, they've been talking almost different languages, not really making proposals that the other side considers realistic. It's a problem. And at some point, they either get a deal or Manfred imposes a short season, 48, 54 games, somewhere in that range. And that is really not in the best interest of anyone because then you don't get expanded playoffs. You don't get any of the other things that they're talking about. And what you do get is a grievance from the union essentially for financial damages. Not a healthy situation.
Right. And it's going to build a bigger chasm between the two sides, which seems pretty large as it is. And to have this fighting in public when people are just trying to fight to keep a job or get back to work does not play well for the entirety of the sport. I want to hit you on two other questions here, real quick, Ken, because we're all focused on this. The Major League Baseball draft is tomorrow, and that's cut down now to 5 rounds. How significant is it to take that draft and shrink it down? When we talk 33rd, 35th round, and just really bang it out after about 160 players.
A lot of ways to look at this, Mike. I believe it's significant. And I believe you're chasing players from your sport. You're perhaps losing that 10th rounder that who knows what he might have been. And maybe he decides to go
Right.
do something else. Now, baseball feels those players are eventually going to be there anyway. They'll go to high school, well, they'll go to college, graduate high school, go to
College.
college, maybe come out another year later. But at the same time, there's a risk. And I don't know that it's a healthy message to send when your sport is fighting for every athlete. So that's one problem with it. The other issue baseball would say is, hey, there's no minor league season this year, almost certainly. So to draft 35, 40 minor league players doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I get that for this season, but there's also talk of reducing the number of minor league teams, which would lead to a reduced draft. That's going to happen, I believe, in future years. But to answer your question, to go 5 rounds, in my opinion, is not healthy for the sport.
And you mentioned the minor leagues, and that was out there before the pandemic and shrinking the minor leagues, shrinking minor league systems. Does it make sense to have 3 A-ball level teams and have 6 teams in your organization? It just feels like, as a whole, Ken, all of this is trying to make a significant change to the economic structure of baseball. Is it all small stuff as part of that much bigger goal that Rob Manfred and the owners are trying to get to for 2020 and beyond with this sport?
It's not small stuff because while the minor leagues are just one element here, there are others. And we've seen this over the years. This is a sport that has taken a data driven approach in many ways in an effort to become
Hmm.
more efficient. Now, there's nothing wrong with that inherently, and often it leads to better outcomes. But at the same time, it has also angered the major league players with the way they've been reduced simply to assets and the way clubs have gone about pre-arbitration, arbitration, free agency. Everything's a math equation now. And it's taken
Right.
some of the human aspect of it away. And that is part of the reason why players are so angry right now with the clubs and the owners and what they're trying to do here with this additional reduction. They feel that they've given and given and given, actually had it taken and taken and taken, and now they're simply
Right.
saying enough. So, yes, baseball is trying to become more efficient, always thinking of new ways, and perhaps the minor leagues are one area where efficiency in a greater sense is needed. The question is, how do you go about it? And can you go about it in a way that is perceived as humane? And in the case of the minor leagues, it's part of Americana, right? So it's a
Yeah.
delicate balance, and they're struggling to find it.
Yeah, those multiple stories about those cities who may lose their minor league team, and you realize what that team has meant for generations. We understand progress, we understand a new way to do things, but losing those just touchstones of communities is very hard. So, just to come back to the headline here as we wrap up, how long after a deal do you think it'll take to go from, okay, we have an agreement for a schedule and compensation, to first pitch of games that matter? What do you think that time frame looks like, if you can eyeball that?
It's about a month. And that's one reason why baseball already has blown the opportunity that was a golden opportunity to come back on July 4th. It was something that could have just been so great and so well received, been viewed as a healing type of thing, no question. But that's not going to happen. So if there's a deal end of this week, early next week, and I'm being optimistic in saying that, mid-July becomes more realistic. And who knows, it could be August before this is all decided and they're on the field again, in which case you can only play 50, 60 games. So that's how it looks right now. And again, Mike, I wrote this over the weekend. The July 4th blown opportunity really was, in
Yeah.
my view, a huge miss. And I understand all the points of view here. I've been covering this for 30 years, hearing about it from both perspectives.
Right.
But at the same time, there are a few other things going on here in the country. And in this particular environment, at this time, to have this squabble, you would have hoped there would have been some thought of the bigger picture. And yet, it seems like these two sides cannot get out of their own way.
When I read that article and you said that, that just kind of struck me. It's somebody who lives the game and loves it, like my friend Tim Kirkjian, like you, the guys who are just part of baseball and its fabric and its connection with cities and its history. The opportunities here to help, and it's just not being taken care of. My producer Matt's going to let me go extra innings so I can ask one more question. When the NFL looked like they were in real dire shape, the last legal issue, the last labor issue, I should say, Jeff Saturday from the Colts, Robert Kraft on the ownership side from the Patriots, they kind of got together and led their sides to this. Are there people in position who can play heroes like that, 11th hour guys, to guys, we have to come together and save the season? Are there people at the table who have the juice to do that in this conversation?
That is a very good question because obviously the people running the show have yet to, at this point, get a deal. That's the Commissioner Rob Manfred, Deputy Commissioner Dan Halem, head of the union Tony Clark, and his top negotiator Bruce Meyer. I don't expect any of them to yield their authority to have a scenario like the one you just described take place. There are others who have been involved in the process in the past. In the March agreement, for instance, there were other agents contributing on the player side. But I don't know if we're going to see that type of relationship you just described between an owner and a player occur in Major League Baseball and have that override everything else. I just see the two sides as too centralized for that to happen.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.